This webinar actually is a very interesting webinar for all our viewers, because we are going to actually share the first-hand experience with respect to creating an international campus for an IIT in Zanzibar. So I'm very much excited for everyone to understand more about how IITs actually decided on this campus. We're going to cover this, what all programs they are going to offer on this campus, how IIT Madras actually looking at this campus potential impact on global education. And we'll also learn a bit about the learning of Professor Preeti and her experience and insights on leading an international educational institution like IIT. So I'm very much excited to uh, take Dr. Preeti on this webinar series and learn more from her about the IIT Madras Zanzibar campus. Again, I feel that this webinar will also give us a lot of insight, not only from an IIT Madras point of view, but also from Dr. Preeti's point of view in terms of how she is seeing this entire piece with respect to creating an international campus outside India. This is a very special Illuminate webinar for the Meritto team as well as our viewers, ma'am, as we are going to discover the story behind IIT's first international campus in Zanzibar from none other than you, ma'am, who is the director in charge for this campus. And incidentally, ma'am, you are also the first women director of any IIT across India. So we are very excited about this journey. Welcome, ma'am, for joining on this webinar.
Thank you so much, Vikram. It's a pleasure to be here.
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. So, ma'am, for all our viewers, let me just give a bit of a background about IIT Madras Zanzibar campus, because they should understand in detail about the campus, and a bit about you, ma'am, before we get into the discussion. So for all our viewers, the IIT Madras Zanzibar campus is proposed as a world-class institution, serving the educational and research needs in the Eastern African region. So specifically, this campus is coming up in the eastern side of Africa. And it is into a unique partnership between the government of India and the government of Zanzibar, along with IIT Madras, for creating this offshoot campus of IIT Madras in Zanzibar. The campus will be operational from October 2023. And we are very excited that this is the first international campus of any IIT outside India. So that's a bit on the IIT Zanzibar campus. Now, let me just quickly come back and share with our viewers more about Dr. Preeti. So Dr. Preeti is a director in charge of the IIT Zanzibar campus. She completed her chemical engineering degree from IIT Madras in 1995. She is credited with actually publishing more than 50 odd articles in peer review journals. She completed her PhD as well. She's also a very strong advocate of gender equality and STEM education in India. She was born and raised in Mysore, and she belongs to the family of academicians. That's something which I think all of us should look at. And on the personal side, she is also a marathon runner. So, ma'am, welcome to this webinar. Thank you so much once again. And we'll just quickly get into the discussions right away for our viewers, ma'am. So without wasting time, let me just get into the questions, ma'am, with respect to, can you please share with us the compelling behind IIT Madras Zanzibar establishment, and how did it all begin, ma'am? If you can share the story from the beginning, ma'am, because whatever PR we have seen so far, we have not seen the coverage with respect to how it started, what all discussions went into, and how the campus came into existence. So if you can share more about that, that will be helpful for our viewers, ma'am.
Sure. Thank you, Vikram. So it starts basically with NEP. And as you know, in our national education policy, we made a strong statement that internationalization or globalization of Indian education we consider it important and an important strategic direction. And of course, in most of these dialogues on education, the IITs, willy-nilly, we are at the forefront of these discussions, and we were there right from the beginning. And we had participated in various sort of discussions on what does it mean that we are going to internationalize our education. Of course, also why do we need to do something like this? We were doing possibly just fine. Our growth was going very well. IIT alumni are among the top leaders across the world. So I think there was a lot of, I think, more on a little bit of philosophy, little bit of practice discussions around that. And our institute, our IIT Madras, has also been closely involved in this. We have an Office of Global Engagement. We have an active traffic of international students, of course, for many years. But in the Office of Global Engagement, for the past few years, our primary goal was to really strategize this aspect and do it in the right way, because it's not just about having international cohorts or having large number of international programs or sending large numbers of our students abroad. It has to be done right. It has to fit in with the overall strategic directions and ideals and missions and visions for the institution. So I have been working with Professor Raghu, who's the Dean of Global Engagement, for a few years now. And one of the things our team was doing was looking in the region. We were looking at neighbor countries where our brand of education may find value among the people. And it actually, that was our intention, where one thing is, this is important for India, etc. But what we've always approached it as is, how can we help a different cross or a bigger cross section of young people get education that they deserve, that adds value to them, that makes their futures better, improves their future opportunities and options they have. So we have we did visits to several countries, and we also spoke extensively with our Ministry of Education, saying we are interested in this. We want to participate in an activity like this. And we had an outreach. It was almost, I think, coincidental. There was an outreach from the government of Tanzania and Zanzibar. There was a delegation from there that visited India and particularly IIT Madras. And they were beyond impressed with our campus, our activities, our, the vibrant student population that's here, our research park, which has grown phenomenally. And it is a nod to how higher education today is going hand in hand with research and innovation and entrepreneurship, and the big startup culture that we have at IIT Madras. So they were very impressed with this, and they felt like something of this magnitude and of this nature would sit very well in their country. And then after that point, it was a discussion predominantly, I think, between the two governments, saying, how can we facilitate this, and who in India would be willing to come here and actually have a physical campus. And we got into the story because we were keen. We felt we are very, I think, pioneering, I would say, in lots of different kinds of activities. We have our largest digital education platform, NPTEL, which does courses, certifications, etc. We introduced an online degree granting kind of opportunity a few years ago. We this year launched a medical science and technology program, which is at the interface of medicine and engineering. So we said, it sounds big. It sounds really almost outrageously big, but we are ready to do it, is what our internal discussions indicated. And we had several visits. Delegations from IIT Madras visited, were well received by the government of Tanzania and Zanzibar. I still remember our first meeting. We had an audience with the president of Zanzibar directly, and in the State House, which is his official place, and very ceremonial kind of meeting. And our discussions were very positive, and we felt like we have a cultural connect also. In there are differences for sure in the way our sort of upbringing and all is and theirs is, but we also found a lot of connect. And historically, we've had a lot of ties also between our two countries. And reception was positive. We presented what IIT Madras stands for, type of the principles on which we stand for, and those that we are not, those are uncompromisable for us. So we talked a lot about that, and they were very on board with all of that, respectful of all of that, saying, this work, this is good. We really appreciate that. We know that these are the foundations on which your prominence in the world scale stands, and this is what we want you to bring to us. And both sides, I think the chemistry just gelled. And so when we came back and we spoke, then further discussions between the ministries, and we charted our agreement, which is a tripartite between the two governments and IIT Madras. And then it has really flown from there. It's incredible that in these few short months, we've gone from a delegation visit to actually about a month and a half welcoming the first batch of students into a campus. It's just I think it's warp speed is what it has gone at. And I think we are very happy at IIT Madras. We're really happy that we have this phenomenal opportunity to do something like this, go outside our country for the first time and build something. And we are particularly excited that it is in a place like this where we have chemistry, and our reception has been so good, right from the president of Zanzibar, the president of Tanzania, the ministers of education on both mainland and the island, with whom we've shared many you imagine these meetings will be really boring and stiff and very painful, but they've been incredible. They've been so inspiring, each of them individually, but also the way the conversation and the project itself, the way it's grown. So I think that in essence is the story, Vikram. Hopefully that takes you through our journey a little bit.
No doubt about that, ma'am. It's a very incredible story, and the way it has progressed in the last few months, I believe probably this will be the fastest project of creating an international campus, at least by an Indian educational institution. That's my belief, but obviously you would know better because you are managing it from that side, ma'am. Just an additional question on that. You said that you looked at various countries, and Tanzania is where you actually looked at the deepest, and finally you chose that. So, ma'am, Dar es Salaam is just next door. Was there a reason to choose Zanzibar over Dar es Salaam, or Zanzibar was actually the choice at the first place?
No, Vikram, this is a good question. We didn't know. I mean, I hadn't been to Africa at all in my life till we started on this. So we didn't know neither the local sort of lay of the land or the dynamics in any way. So we went there open-minded. We said, show us where you think something like an IIT Madras can come up. We have been all along. We've been working closely with the Indian High Commission in Tanzania, that's situated in Dar es Salaam, and also the Consul General in Zanzibar. So they set up not only these discussions with the ministers, etc., that I mentioned, but also a little bit of travel around the country. We went to I remember also that we went to the city that is at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro. It was very tempting. We didn't have the time to do anything beyond a small trip into a forest that was there. But we did all these little bit of touring around the country, both in mainland and in the island. And we were open-minded because there are pluses and minuses. If you situate yourself in a big city, then there is traffic and there is paucity of good land, which we need. If you want to build a campus, you need really big tranche of land, and it's ideal not to be very close to other developments. If there's a resort next door, or we don't know if that's something that would work for us. So there was that we were thinking about. Whereas if you go to a smaller place, there is the aspect of connectivity that you think about. And if we looked at India, the new IITs that are in India, they're all over, right? They're in every kind of place, I think. I've been to a handful of them, and there's no even actually, I've worked at IIT Bombay before. Even if you compare an IIT Bombay campus to an IIT Madras campus, there are differences. The culture of the city does seep into the institution, where if we locate a big campus like us in there. So we kept all these considerations in mind, but ultimately, we asked for their views on what would work for their country, and we were respectful of that. The president of Zanzibar, I mentioned to you that we met with him directly, and he was very keen that this island develop in a way that's really futuristic and forward-looking and modern, etc. It's not a remote kind of place by any stretch of the imagination. It's a very popular tourist destination, not only for Asia, but also from Europe. There's tons of people traveling into Zanzibar beaches every day, several flights from the Middle East as well, and from mainland Africa. So we didn't feel like, there was any compromise, because we are not in a capital city, so to speak, of a big country, but we are in an island. And also, furthermore, when we came back and ran these options, and explained a little bit about our touring around the East African locations to our colleagues. Our colleagues that work in ocean structures and that study tides and waves, etc., they were really excited, because they said, this is an opportunity. It's our own campus. It's an opportunity for us to do some research that we cannot really do. We have a beach, of course, and we do a lot of work with ports and waterways, etc., at IIT Madras in terms of research and technology development. But they were really excited by the opportunity a small island will present. So we said, let's go forward with it. It's a small population. Number of educational institutions, higher education institutions in this island is small. So there is room, there's elbow room for us to be there. They showed us some land, virgin land that will hopefully potentially be where our permanent campus that we are in the process of developing is going to get located. All of these factors played in, but I would say still that the biggest reason was the warmth with which we were received in Zanzibar. And, it's ultimately, I think you set everything aside. It's that people to people connection. And we feel like we have that very well with the people in the island. And of course, it doesn't, the institution, and you know it very well, Vikram, the student, faculty, staff population is going to be, it's serving the region and beyond as well. So this is a campus where there'll be Indian students, there'll be certainly students from Tanzania mainland, of course, students that grew up on the island and have called it their home and hopefully will lead us through living in this place into the future. And other countries, mainly in East Africa as well. So faculty also in the long run, we're looking at. So that's my long answer to your question about why Zanzibar.
No, I think that makes complete sense. And obviously it's right on the Indian Ocean. So that's also a very important stuff for us as a country in a strategic location like Zanzibar. So I have no doubt that with respect to choosing a location, the points which you mentioned were really, really apt. Ma'am, now changing a gear a bit from a perspective that you conceptualized, you did your study, then you actually signed up with the Zanzibar government along with government of India to open up a campus. And this entire piece happened in last 1.5 years, I guess. So I'm sure you must have faced a lot of challenges. If you can share some of the challenges, because it's very helpful for viewers as well as people who are or the other institutions who are thinking of establishing their campus outside India. They should learn from what you have gone through in this period of 15 to 18 months.
You're absolutely right. And it's on our agenda that we write down our, our reflections on the process and what worked and what was a wrong kind of direction to go in, etc. And I will confess that I'm still very much in the thick of it because we're doing. In fact, I was late just now because we're doing a round of faculty interviews, also student interviews. So it's still not at a place where I can give you a 360-degree view because still in the trenches at the moment. But I would say that the challenging aspects were, it's the first time, right? It's the first time an IIT has gone outside India. Some of you may know that we were constituted as from an act of parliament. So whenever we were formed, it was read in the parliament, and that was the origin of IIT, of the institution IIT Madras in 1959. And we had, we were created from an act of parliament. So we are what does that mean? It means that this is an Indian institution, right? But it wasn't insulated in that way because we had significant 10 to 15 years of hand-holding help from Germany. So we had German professors in the campus initial phase doing the teaching, civil engineering trained professors developing the master plan of the campus. Several of the early faculty of IIT Madras went to Germany on sponsored sort of scholarships to do their PhDs and bring back their learnings and then become full-fledged professors over here. So that was the model. But that model doesn't exactly fit into this because this is still an IIT Madras. This is an Indian entity that is sitting in a foreign country. So, I think the biggest challenge was wrapping our thoughts around the implications of this. It's a little bit of detail. I don't know if your audience is necessarily interested in that. But we have academic autonomy, which means that we decide what courses, what degrees, what programs we offer. Every single course that, say I teach, I have to present it in front of colleagues, get their approval or nod and get feedback, etc. And then it's up to me. This is not the way most educational institutions work. And, you have to bring this quality that makes us who we are into this new institution. But it's the landscape is completely different. This caters to, this JE kind of student cohort or this GATE kind of student cohort, etc. we cannot we shouldn't necessarily take, you can't copy paste this model, but you have to retain the essence of the IIT model. So I think the challenge was really it's an intellectual challenge, I would say, that because the practical aspects get solved. You know how it is. If you put enough human resources or hours or money behind it, practical things get solved. But this intellectualizing this activity and figuring out what makes best sense for us, them, the students, the parents, etc. I would say that is a challenge.
And probably, I think, ma'am, that is the reason why at the starting you are just offering couple of courses, probably. Can you please elaborate more on, ma'am, how you selected only these two programs for IIT Zanzibar campus?
This finally, Vikram, is an easy question to answer, because the second challenge I didn't mention was this compressed timeline. And, since we've been doing this, we could open student applications only after the MOU signing, obviously, right? Because something of this magnitude, without the ink drying, you can't do that. So we opened applications only on July 6th. We have to start classes on October 24. And we knew this, all these months of discussion, we knew this October 24th was an articulated date we were really shooting for that. There were certain moments, maybe 1-2 weeks in between, where we said we may go into 2024. But from the beginning, everybody, IIT Madras, our director, Professor Kamakoti, on the Zanzibar, Tanzania side, the ministers and all the colleagues that we've been working with over there have been shooting for this as the deadline. Now, for something of this magnitude to open in this short while, what makes sense? Again, like I said to the previous questions, without compromise on any of those, the foundations and stuff that makes us who we are. We also had occasion to discuss in detail with the Ministry of Education in Zanzibar their strategic plans for the future. Right, because you can't just go there and plant something. That has never been our intention, and it will not be. So they had one of the few things that they were articulating. One of them was, they said we need to really get trained human resources and persons that can work in computer technology. So we really need that. Now, this is great because data science is a significant strength of IIT Madras. Of all the 1,000 things that we do well in terms of topics, data science is something that we've been doing really well. And if you look at our student cohorts, they are really interested in this topic. Not only the Indians, whatever international students we get, if it's a data science program, it's really very popular. Partially because we are strong in it, but the other half is because that's where opportunities are there for young people today in data science and AI, and in terms of domains with application domains within that. It's like the whole world is out there. Banks are from one end of the thing, being banks to governments to educational institutions. Everybody is seeking expertise from a well-trained data science AI person. So we said this is a no-brainer. Essentially, we're saying that this is a no-brainer because it aligns with one of the strategic directions that locally they want and they need, and our strengths and what's popular for students, not only Indians, but we've routinely been getting applications from Ethiopia, Kenya, etc. And those students also come here. Many of them study in master's programs in data science. So that's why we started with this, and we certainly wanted to start small, because there was so many. I mean, you asked, I gave you a sort of a long philosophical answer for the challenges, but of course there were many practical sort of minds that we had to cross that could do. And So we said, keeping all that in mind, let's start with this, but we will grow, we will expand starting immediately into the next batch of students. We'll expand with other programs, etc. Space is another practical aspect one has to keep in mind. Not only space in terms of square footage, but the kind of space that you have. You need a different kind of space for accommodating students in hostels, etc. And you need different kind of space for labs. And engineering and science labs can occupy not only a lot of rooms, but also need very specialized equipments, etc. We will bring all those, because whatever is needed for a good education for undergraduate and master's education for young people, we will bring all that in. But with this program, you need really top-notch computers, which are easy to bring in and import. You need really state-of-the-art smart classrooms. Today, especially in post-COVID world, that problem is pretty much solved. If you can spend enough, you can get a really well set up smart classroom. So we said we can do that. So with all these practical considerations, so the time constraint that we had, the match of our expertise, the strategic plan articulation, and what is popular among our students, and in terms of space, what we could immediately envision bringing in, we said, let's go with these programs.
So, ma'am, I believe that the program selection is based on the strength of IIT Madras, which I completely agree to. But the question again is from a point of view of ensuring quality of education and maintaining the IIT standard which we have in India. So how are you envisaging that for the new campus?
This is my job. In short, this is my job. This is what I think is expected of me, that, all the whatever media attention aside, that's okay. That's whatever is what it is. But really the job is to ensure that that what we stand for is not compromised. I don't mean it that it should be exactly copied from here over there. In fact, one of my senior colleagues tells me, of course, I get a lot of very good advice, I think. One of the things he tells me is that, let's not, when we work together, he's on the steering committee for this, the statement he makes is, let's not repeat the mistakes we've made here over there, because we have an opportunity to have learned, reflected upon what we've done over here, learned and grown. So let's do better there. So, and that's what we are going with. The entire team is really committed to say that, of course, for our country, for our billions of people, and we are ranked 1 in the country, so that probably means something. So that brand retention quality is important. But our team, what we are really very frequently in every single meeting, in every single decision that we've already made over these past several months, articulation is that let's even try to do better, because these students deserve it. They come from a different milieu and they are more diverse. And we've had outreach from other parts of not only East Africa, but other parts of Africa which are less developed. And we had a teacher from there say that he works with gifted children in really less developed parts of the continent. And what can we do with our program for students like this? They're going through our process at the moment, but if a student like that is there in our campus, it's an opportunity beyond what we even have access to over here. I don't know, world scale. So it is my job. And I think we are putting in the fundamental steps needed to ensure that, in terms of our process for student selection and the faculty that we are going through, and a handful of us will be deputed from here to there. Those we've been in this, I've been in the system 20 plus years. Some of my colleagues who've been similar periods of time will come along, and we have significant advice and mentoring, etc., from the main campus also. We have an advisory board. These are top-notch academics from across the world, those that have set up in private and large institutions in India, those that, and from the UK, and there's one with who set up an institution in Africa. He's based in the US, but he set up an institution in Africa in the social sciences, and other distinguished alumni of our institutions. And everybody's coming in to not only just support as a show of strength, but really to help us ensure what you very correctly articulated as how we don't compromise. We don't compromise in any way in this case.
Sure, ma'am. I think that's really relevant. Now, since there was clearly a deadline with respect to going live from October, and you were actually probably running backwards in terms of creating everything, one very important step in this entire journey is the role of a seamless and efficient admission and enrollment process, which will not only attract the right set of students, but retain those students for an international campus like IIT Zanzibar. So, ma'am, how has been your experience with respect to the process, the enrollment system which you are using, and the steps with respect to what all you have done?
So it's been very good, Vikram, and I think it's another India story, like the availability of a really enhanced technology like this, and it's at our fingertips, right? I don't imagine this happens so seamlessly and so in such an agile manner anywhere but in India, right? So, and I think that agility of the system has been what has been really critical to us. And I know we worked with Meritto. I would say we've been almost a very troublesome client, possibly because our needs have been vague so many times. They've been always urgent, right? It's always the deadline is tomorrow, etc. And I'm really impressed with how, as a country, everybody is viewing the importance of something like this, and the agility with which we've received response. And we've had, I think, because lots of people are involved, colleagues are involved, colleagues have very specific kind of requirements from systems that they use and the dashboards that they have access to, etc. Students, yes, Indian students whose needs are very different than students from different parts of the world, because in some sense I don't know, maybe it's the Indian in me, but sometimes it feels like we're 3-4 steps ahead of the rest of the world in terms of technology and the enablements from technology that we have, our payments, etc. So advanced compared to other places, but we've had to accommodate them being 3-4 steps behind in a very agile, overnight type of manner. So I think it's been good. I believe that we've all learned a lot from this warp speed exercise that we've done. I don't imagine that we could have done this without the systems that we worked with you, with your company, and again, but the most important thing at the end of the day is the people. And the people that we've worked with have just been fantastic across the board. The vendors that we worked with, like companies like yourself that we work with, and even within the system, colleagues, the staff members that have stepped up. This whole concept didn't exist last year, August of 2022, this didn't exist. I didn't know anything about. I was going about doing my chemical engineering teaching and global engagement, where we were welcoming international students. And I think we were just thinking about, for the IIT Madras main campus, a simple set of things that we need to do to seek applications from international students. That's all. That was all that was in the radar. From there to where we are now is just it's miles ahead, I think. So, but anyway, all that, it's been great. But I do believe that when we have a second to breathe, it's an opportunity for us to sit down, reflect, do better, because before we know it, our next year's cycle is going to start, as it should. So should definitely learn from everything, every experience this year, and do better next time. But again, I will reiterate that for us, for our team, it has been the relationships that we have built that are very important for us, and retaining those on a person to person level is also going to be very important.
No doubt about that, ma'am. And I can vouch for all the 350 employees at Meritto, ma'am. Like India created history yesterday with Chandrayaan 3. I can vouch for all 350 employees here at Meritto that we were looking forward to this campus admission process, ma'am. And each and every team member was involved from various departments to ensure that you have a very seamless process, whether you call it night. I think some of those calls at those odd hours, our team was there to support. So I'm very, very grateful for whatever you are trying to build, and whatever small little we can play a role as a company in that direction to drive that forward. We'll be happy to serve you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Vikram.
Ma'am, we have few questions from the audience. If you're fine, I know that we are running short of time, but at the same time, I would like to take some questions from the audience. If you're fine, I can take few of those questions.
Let's take a few questions, Vikram, definitely.
Sure, ma'am. So the first question is, could you elaborate on the admission process for the IIT Madras Zanzibar campus? Is it a requirement for a student to take the JEE exam before seeking the enrollment there?
Okay, this is a good question. So again, in several discussions in our among our colleagues and the IIT Madras Senate, it was decided that the admissions process for IIT Zanzibar will be separated from the JEE, because as you all may know, the JEE is an admission process/portal for BTech students in all the IITs. It's a common one across all the IITs. And the programs that are offered at Zanzibar campus are going to be, right now, it's the BS, Bachelor of Science in Data Science and AI. Into the future, it's going to be interdisciplinary programs. And again, this is an articulation from NEP, where it's advised that international campuses, preferably, it's not a hard rule or anything, but preferably go for BS, Bachelor of Science degrees, which are in some ways better accepted in the international community. So we have a BS degree, and our admission process is separate from the JEE. At this year, what we've done is we are going to run a separate screening test for the students. In the early years of inception of IIT, all the candidates were interviewed before they were accepted into the institution. Obviously, we can't do that anymore with the type of numbers that we have for that are writing the JEE. For the Zanzibar campus, the idea is that interview process will be there, at least in the initial years, because there are a few unknowns in terms of what kind of cohort is going to be interested in this campus, and it's an international diverse kind of population, etc. So there's the application process, which we quality of the application we'll look at. There's a screening test which students are writing on 3rd of September for the undergraduate program, and there's also an interview. Likewise for the master's program also. We are reading all the applications. The students already wrote a screening test last Sunday, And those that clear the screening test will be interviewed before the final selection. So that's going to be our admission.
Sure, ma'am. I think the other question is with respect to will the curriculum of Zanzibar campus be identical to the main campus, which is IIT Madras? Will there be adaptation to the local context?
So it cannot be identical because this exact degree is not offered in the main campus, and that's how we want it. Because these are sister campuses, right? So we don't want that, like here there's a BTech in chemical engineering. There it seems a little bit odd to have the same exact program over there. Having said that, in terms of quality, in terms of pedagogy, in terms of how we believe the student experience should be, in terms of experiential learning, how much of elective courses they have vis-a-vis things that are core curriculum, those aspects of it will be retained in the Zanzibar campus. And we've already, I can say this really confidently, it's not a theoretical, because we've already developed a full 4-year curriculum for the bachelor's program and the 2-year curriculum for the postgraduate program. In fact, we've also developed a 2-year curriculum for a postgraduate program we'll be offering next year. And it's all ready and set. Lots of elements that are there in our main campus, the important ones, will be retained. But the very specific, also the number of credits the student has to earn in order to get the degree, and all the qualities associated with it, and etc. will be there. But the specific articulations will be, actually no student in IIT Madras today has an identical transcript to another one. So it's just that number of credits, everybody has more than a certain minimum number, but everybody does different set of courses because we give a lot of choice to students to choose their courses. So you can think of it in that sort of way.
Sure, ma'am. Ma'am, last question before we wind up, I think. How do you plan to maintain a balance between local expertise and faculty from the parent institution in India?
Okay, thank you for this question. I like this question. So here's something that we've immediately done, and this is with support from, and I think this highlights the involvement of Indian government in this. What we've immediately done is and I think Meritto team knows this as well, we opened, did a special application drive for Tanzanian and Zanzibar students to apply to Chennai campus program in this year. Okay, and we had very good traction on that. Again, although the timelines were very squished, etc., we had very good traction. And because we have 30, 40, 50 programs that the students from various backgrounds can come into, response was good. And the government of India, via the Indian High Commission in Tanzania and the Consul General in Zanzibar, has given them those that we selected out of this group, has given full right scholarships to these people. Actually, this means literally that their ticket is booked and they're given a ticket to come to Chennai and study in our programs and get degrees. Now, we are expecting that this will happen every year for a few years, at least for now. So we are expecting that these people will now get trained. They'll get the higher degree that they need in order to qualify to be faculty, but they also get the IIT Madras culture and the pedagogy, etc. So we are developing this cohort of locals who will potentially have the interest and the opportunity to go back to IITM Zanzibar as faculty. In the meanwhile, again, I remind you of the German model that I mentioned was the inception of IIT Madras. In the meanwhile, several of us are going over there, and we are doing recruitment process for faculty for short-term employment, very similar to the way that we take faculty over here in the main campus, which is separated. So we feel, And again, today I'm just coming out of a bunch of interviews for faculty. We spoke to young people who are very keen to move to Zanzibar on contract employment for teaching. So now I'm very confident at this moment that that balance that whoever has asked this question, we will manage. For now, it will be predominantly Indians in terms of, and from IIT Madras in terms of the teaching fraternity. But in course of time, we're expecting that the local population will also step up. And we are even hoping internationally people will be attracted to something like this, you know, because it's a destination now and the world is really shrinking. It's all becoming, it's all coming together in some sense than before. One last thing though is there's academic institutions are not just about faculty and students. There are a large number of staff that support, and sometimes the number of staff is larger than the number of faculty like myself. And over there, we are looking extensively at welcoming locals into our campus to work on these positions right away, right from October onwards.
Ma'am, thank you so much for your time. Just a personal question at the fag end of this discussion. I know, ma'am, you are a marathon runner and you have been running this marathon of establishing IIT Madras's Zanzibar campus. That too in Eastern Africa, as all of us know, that the most of the runners across the globe come from that region. So how are you feeling about it? Time are you thinking of doing a marathon in Eastern Africa?
Oh, yeah. No, it's been incredible because some of the other faculty who signed on to come from this campus to there are also runners. So even at lunch today, we are plotting and we are thinking that those that aren't runners yet, we have to convert them, you know, wake them up in the morning and take them running. That's the plan. But, you know, it's a little intimidating because these are really good runners over there, the world's best. And, you know, I am not, definitely, I'm not breaking any world records in this period at least. So it's definitely something that I get very excited by, that, hey, this is East Africa. And one more thing is that once the students are in the campus, we have a sports tournament. I'm really excited about our Zanzibar campus students participating in sports tournament, because I'm thinking that as long as it's something to do with running or soccer, etc., these people are going to be really good. Both men and women students that will be over there. So yeah, it's a good question and it's very exciting. May not do a marathon because that takes a lot of training, and some of you may know this already. I don't think I'll have the time to train for a marathon alongside this one that I'm running for setting up the campus. But maybe in a couple of years from now.
I'm sure, ma'am. Once you establish this, you can actually take out some time and focus on that. So that ends our discussion, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time in joining on this conversation, ma'am. And at Meritto, we are looking forward to helping you, supporting you, as well as IIT Madras in doing whatever is required from an enrollment and an admission point of view, using Meritto's platform, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Vikram. It's been a pleasure to be on this call, and thank you to the audience for your really nice questions and interaction. Thanks also to Meritto team. I've enjoyed really working with them, working with all of you, and look forward to more in the future. You'll hear from me as early as tomorrow morning, I'm sure, for some other things that we...
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sounds good. We'll look forward to that. Take care, ma'am. Bye-bye.